Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I am CEO and founder of Sound Financial Group, and I'm joined today by a very special guest in a very special situation. No, it's not that our shirts match. It's that Corey is joining me live in studio for the first time in a long time, and the last time in the studio. Yeah. So today, just kick it off at the beginning, what we're going to be getting into is your planning for 2022. Now, not your financial planning for 2022. All the planning it takes for your finances to be able to show up. Now that I want to make sure you guys know what's coming, but let me address this shirt situation.
I got to address that cold situation first. I'm sitting here in Seattle, freezing compared to my home office in Chicago. I just want to point that out.
Well,
for all the Chicago winter haters out there.
Yeah, sorry about that. The heater is not right next to Corey, so it's going to take a second to speed up. If he slips into some sort of light hypothermia during our conversation today, my apologies. But so these shirts, he's got like a bunch of different colors, and I've only got blue and white. But you can't tell because for whatever reason, the camera's not picking up the other colors on Corey.
Just have one more color. It's just red.
Just red, yeah. But
cross stripe, but
yeah, evidently I got a red filter of some kind. Probably to help deal with those red eyes of Corey's every morning. You guys have no idea.
Well, it is a bit earlier for me right now than it normally is too. Like my life changed when I moved 2 hours ahead in the time zones compared to Paul, who like recreationally gets up early for some reason.
Yeah, well, I started getting up at 4:30 on Saturdays and Sundays too, because I was like, how much easier is it to just not change my alarm? And if I hit snooze and sleep until 6:30, I'm still up before most people, and I feel like I slept till noon.
It's even easier to just not set an alarm in the first place.
There's something to that, I suppose.
I had a baby, and she's my alarm.
Yeah, you don't have to set your alarm. Your alarm is set for the next 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. So here's where we want to pick up today from what we talked about before. We were talking, did the Thanksgiving episode.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about what to be grateful for in the last 20 months or so, in the midst of a lot of difficulty, a lot of tragedy for families on all fronts. And yet there's a unique removing that occurred. Like a lot of things got pulled away from our life, and we were left with some of the more fundamental things, allowing people the opportunity to notice things they didn't notice before. For instance, one client who's been a high-powered chief officer for companies around the world and served president for some of these organizations, CEOs for others. And one of the things they were sharing with me the other day is, I kind of really figured out that I really enjoy being home and being with the kids and being with my wife. And this is after I've known this person for over 2 decades. And this is after being like a road warrior for these big corporations. Yeah. And now they're like, no, this life of being around my family and around my neighborhood and friends and all that, I like better than getting, waltzed up to first class and all the things and the attachments that came from the life he had before. And that may have happened for many of you that are listening right now.
We've had clients notice, we'll go back to the travel and the vacations and all those things, of course, because we like it, but we realize we don't need it. We can have a good life without it, which means they'll still do it, but probably spend less over time on it. I realized that I'm more of an introvert than I thought that I was. Like I was really happy being at home, being with the family, and getting that recharge time by myself, even though I'm very outgoing. Like I think more of the world thinks they're extroverts than not, because it's just been popular to be an extrovert over the last 10 years and in the current of media. And a little quiet time goes a long way.
So for all of you that have kind of had that same experience, you're seeing some things that are useful and valuable to you before, we're going to introduce you to some, I don't think we've done this in 3 or 4 years, maybe, the episode where we talk about at year end, how we plan for next year. And so the normal business plan, most people do. Career plan depends on, if you own a business, you're doing your business plan. If you own a career, you've got to do your annual plan for whatever you're out in the market. If you're in sales, you got to have your numbers. If you're, running a team, I'm going to recruit 2 new people to the team, whatever that is. And it always starts with that business side. How much income am I going to make? What are my bonuses going to look like? All of that stuff. And what we are encouraging in this conversation is actually take one step back before the money and before the career that got you the money. Is just to pause. And this is the thing, by the way, I want to say this too before we hit this next point. Nobody is going to recommend that you do this. In fact, it's in nobody's interest but yours to do what we're saying right now.
Right.
Okay. And the reason I say that is your manager, if you're even a high-powered executive listening to this, your manager's job is to handle their concerns and the concerns for their role. Like there's no concern for how much time you spend with your spouse.
Right.
Except for personal interest and maybe like affection that your leadership has for you. That can be there. Absolutely. But it's not required.
It's not required. And they still have whoever's on their back, pushing those things forward. And early in both of our careers working for large institutions, the speakers that came in, all the planning sessions were like, think big, dream big. You have that capacity because that leads to more business being done for the firm. When we've done it this other way around, actually I was just saying to Danielle just a couple days ago, the further I get along and the more I do this, the more I realize I'll be great with a lot less money than I thought I needed.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And in that enculturation of that the money is what matters. So here's why I'm saying this. This is the part nobody else is going to tell you. Sit down with your spouse and plan, or significant other, to plan your life you want for 2022. Yeah. Let me give you some ideas. One thing you might do is figure out what the future state is that you want. Aviv Shahar, who we've had on the show, talks a lot about what are you doing to solve for the future state. And so be like, what do I want life to look like at the end of 2022? I want to weigh this much. I want to go to church every single Sunday I'm in town, if we're not traveling with family. I want to be working out 3 days a week
than I am now.
Yes. Or even make it a very positive thing. Like I work this much as of June of 2022. So you set it out as this is what I want my life to look like. I want to have a new car. I want to take this vacation. All that stuff is great. Whatever it is for you. Now, for some of you, you might have this mentality. Maybe you're still in a big growth stage and you might want to do two versions of that, what we would call that life ambition, those life aims, the ones that are outside of just, the money goal, if you will. And you lay that out and you might have one this would be satisfactory, right? That would satisfy me. I'd have to make some compromise, but they wouldn't be ones that I would be upset about. And then you have surplus. And the surplus is where you're going to be able to have some luxuries. Fly first class if that's important to you, all those things. So like for me, flying first class is surplus. Mainly because I enjoy it, but if I never had it again the rest of my life, I would not feel like anything was lacking. That's the distinction I mean by that. It'll do, that sufficiency versus surplus.
If I had turned out 6'6", like 11-year-old Corey wanted to be like Michael Jordan, I might think first class is very necessary.
Yes.
I fit pretty well.
Yes. Everybody's sufficiency is different. Yeah. So the end state. So what are, just to give people some thinking, some fodder for their thinking, what are some of the things that you would put in that end state for you at the end of 2022?
Yeah. So, I think things like on average, most Fridays don't have a whole lot of work. Mm-hmm. With Danielle's schedule changing, and it's hard for me to say this specific day I never work or that, but on average, it's more like a 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. I think that regular travel back and forth to the Pacific Northwest to see family. We really love our life in Chicago, but we really miss everybody back here. So we're figuring out what that means long term. So here's an example of another one is we want to build a family compound somewhere over here in the Northwest. But if that means over the next 5 years, like me having to work a lot more than I am now to do it, have less time with Danielle and the rest of my family, then no, that's optional. Until I can, I have to fit inside of that current end state that I want.
And that's why we talked to you about your personal aims being first. Mm-hmm. Because just like Corey's talking about, is like if he holds his aim first, being the time he wants to spend with his immediate family, then this this artifact, this object called a property that people would be able to come to and all that, that can be delayed or done away with altogether if Corey could figure, like if the trade-off was, oh, my life's aim, and Corey could figure out how to make all his aims work 2 hours a week working. That might be superior to working 70 hours a week for 5 years and having the property, because you'd have a lot more time to spend with all the people you care about if that was the primary aim.
Well,
so
it's kind of like we can often, what's the old phrase, to, you know, cut down the forest for the trees, like cut down the forest to build the wood chipper, is how I would call it. Like,
Yeah.
I could say I want to earn a bunch of extra money to buy this great property and build this wonderful thing to be able to spend more time with family. But if it took 5 years of spending less time with family, it's like, wait. And it's a lot of times with parents planning things for their kids, like, we need to spend this, and this on them to invest in their future and let them do this. They would just rather you hang around.
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
they don't need all that other stuff. Just you there is better.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that kind of leads me to the second part of these personal aims. Is there things you have in your life now that work really, really well? And those require maintenance. You don't get to just, build the fence and then leave it.
right.
Yeah, you got to paint it, you got to mend it, you got to do all the things like a real life object. Well, it's no different in the things that we want to put in our future. So for me, some of the maintenance things would be like, I've been eating really, really well until about the last month. I don't know why. Post-COVID, I ate everything in sight. But it's like, I need to maintain that. I don't get to take my eye off that one thing just because I've been good at it for 8 months.
Yeah.
So you guys may have one. You might be, I want to maintain a great relationship with my former employer because they may want to recruit me back in the future. And that might be one of your aims this year. Those are all important aims, all having to do with your personal life, your family, etc. Now, after you know what you want your life to look like, and you think about it this way, like if you want to really work it with your spouse and get them engaged in future together, just write out, a couple of paragraphs. This is what our life looks like.
Yeah.
6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. But now the part that takes a little more work is the financial side. What does it cost to have this life that you laid out that you would want to have in your aims?
And what does it cost to make the money you need for that life, taking out taxes and the 20 or 30% that you also need to set aside to keep it going in the future?
Yeah.
It doesn't cost what it costs now. It costs what it costs to maintain it for the rest of your life, if it's important enough to keep around.
So well said. So it's like, said differently, you're funding two lifestyles. You've got to fund today's, the one you're living, and then the biggest transaction any of us will ever have in our life is that handoff. That if you guys want to play, I think this app is still out there. It's called Oldify.
Yeah.
And you take a picture of yourself and then look at you when you're 65. Unless you're 70 now listening to this, in which case, don't look, I don't know, maybe do see what it's like when you're 65 or already 70. I don't know whether, maybe it'll take some years off. But for everybody else, you can see that older you and then be able to go, well, I'm going to shake that person's hand and I'm either going to say, I owed you a debt, because that's what we owe them. We owe future us a bunch of money to make sure that we can live the rest of our life independently.
Yep. Now, for our clients listening, if you're interested in it, we do have ways to put your oldified picture on your investment accounts. If that's intriguing to you and would help, then call your advisor, and we'd love to help you figure that out. And we didn't just make it up. I wish we did. There have been some studies. They put people's oldified pictures on their 401k statements, and on average, folks were saving more money.
Yeah, they increase their contributions. So it's that idea of we got future us. Now, if you guys are just doing this math and you don't know how much set aside, you're not working with one of our advisors, a household financial officer yet, here's how you could do it. Just pay your taxes and still set aside 20% of your gross income. Now, what that's going to do is I'm going to make this up. Say you have a lifestyle that's going to cost 200 grand. Now, quick math would be, well, if I got a lifestyle that costs 200 grand, I probably need to make close to 300 to pay my taxes to then have enough to spend 200. But I still need to reserve for those future aims. So that would mean I need to make 300, but I also need to save 60 after tax, which means, kind of rough math, you need to add about $90,000 because you need to add enough that it, after tax, still allows you to save about 20%. So it's somewhere between 90 and 100,000 more. So that might be $400,000 of earnings. Big difference.
Yep.
Now that big difference could shock you, like, sorry, I had to hold back some curse words there, like what could be going on in somebody's head while they're listening.
Yeah.
But you might have some version of blasted that
I'm never going to do it.
I can't do it. I can't possibly save that much. I can't make that much money this year, or whatever it is. Right. That's what we want you to be confronted by. Because I would much rather you be confronted by that today. Like, wait, my lifestyle costs 200. I currently make 300. No wonder I don't have a lot of surplus laying around to set aside for the future. And the deep realization that just to set aside an amount of money that might be appropriate without all the extra math, you need to make a full 33% more than 300,000 for 400,000 total income to live the same lifestyle and set aside enough in the future that that lifestyle can continue into your old age. That is confronting, but I promise all of you listening is not near as confronting as trying to shake hands with a 65-year-old and saying, I know I was supposed to show up here to this meeting, this birthday party with a bunch of money, so you'd be okay for the rest of your life. We're going to need a little time. I think about a movie where there's like a mobster and he comes, you know, I don't know how, I can't talk like a mobster. I was going to try to do an accent. I'd probably end up like sounding like an Indian British guy if I tried to do it. So we'll just scrap it.
Pull a fast one on me, see?
Yeah, the old time gangster.
Right. My favorite kind of gangster.
Favorite kind, yeah. So they come to you and say, you owe us money. And you go, come on, look, just give me a little longer to work it out. That's what you're doing. Like, I'm just going to work 5 more years. I'm going to work this out, boss. That is what you don't. That is the way more confronting thing than meeting with an advisor. That's a way more confronting thing than having a difficult conversation with your spouse around spending and budgeting.
And here's the good news: is even if it seems really impossible now, it'll be okay if you figure it out right now. Because the problem is that most of the time, not confronting this, what's going to happen each year, lifestyle creeps up more and more and more, and that just gets to be a bigger and bigger problem. If you figure it out now, and you can't get it all done now, but you can just make a little bit of progress, and it takes you 5 years to get up on plane, I think you can still figure out how to make it all work, because you'll have, each time income goes up, lifestyle stays about the same, and you're getting closer, you're closing that gap. We just have to define the gap first to be able to close it over time, and most people never even know what it is.
Indeed. So a quick review on our first 2 steps. Your life aims first. What you want for your personal life, physical health, spiritual life, relationship with spouse, children, all that. Also, when you think about that lifestyle ambition, think about the activities your kids are going to be in. You know, we have friends that do a ton of hockey. Like, that requires a ton of maintenance, travel, etc. That's got to be a part of your plans. Or if it's not, then you're going to be in breakdown this year when those things conflict.
Yep.
Then you figure out what it costs to have the lifestyle you said you want, and that you reserve enough for the future lifestyle that you want. Now, the reason I bring this up and so key is we have an application process. For those of you that are not clients, we have a philosophy conversation with folks. And then if we align and it feels like there's a good fit, then people go through the application process. And one of the questions on that application is, do you know how much capital at work is going to be required for you to be financially independent? And about 1 in 20 of our clients answer that. Would you agree about 1 in 20? So that means that everybody who meets us and sits down with us, which are probably, generally speaking, compared to just general American society, probably a little more up on their financial acumen than most.
Just by the fact that they're know that they want to reach out for help.
Yeah, exactly. And so then they fill out this questionnaire and this question of, do you know how much capital at work it's going to require for you to be financially independent? And they say no all the time. 19 out of 20 times, meaning people who maybe they're mid 40s, they've been working since their early 20s. And all of us, even when we got our first job, somebody talked about one day you won't be doing this anymore, you'll be retired. Like, we all know that. And yet, nobody knows the destination they're sailing to.
No.
So one, the first part of this exercise, make sure it's a journey you want to be on and you're going to enjoy along the way. Make sure it fits your lifestyle. Then, how much is it going to cost financially? And then the third part is the only part the rest of our society talks about, which is, what is the business plan? What is the career plan that's going to produce the outcomes that you just said you'd be satisfied with? Which, by the way, you talk about conflict with a spouse around career and all that. Well, if you guys aligned on the lifestyle and the financial side first, these career decisions get a lot easier.
A lot easier. Then that, because, and I think that's huge, is the two of you being on the same team first about what's most important, so that every decision you make from there on out is not one of you saying yes or no to a thing that the other wants to do. Like, one of you wants to work more, do an extra road trip for work, and it's not a yes or no from the other spouse. That, it's just what is in line with what we know we both want.
Yeah.
Such a better place to be.
Well, yeah. Then the debate you're having is which one achieves our aims that we set already better.
Yeah.
Not, well, you just don't want me traveling that much because you don't trust me, or you just don't want me to get this extras because you don't want me around the kid. Whatever people can get tuned up about, and they're tuned up about the wrong thing. This is also where some things get a little more difficult. You do all that with your spouse, and then you want to go back to your old habits of working 60, 70-hour work weeks in your business. Like, there's going to be some accountability that shows up with future plans and aims. Like, they just naturally come together. Accountability just shows up because now you're accountable. Even if nobody else holds you accountable, guess what? You get to arrive in that future having achieved it or not achieved it.
Yeah.
The accountability is out there the second you said you had an aim. A lot of people are afraid of that. We've all had employees work for us that clearly didn't have aims. And in some part, because if I've never said what the future should look like, nobody can hold me accountable for not having achieved it, including me. So this could be career change. This could be change your business situation. Might mean you have to hire a chief of staff, a president of your company. You might have to do something else drastic because the life you said you wanted to live can't occur in the space of your career the way you currently have it shaped. That is not something a sales manager is ever going to tell you. That's not something that your vice president, your chief operating officer, all of that stuff, all the employees working for you, it doesn't hurt them if you work a ton more hours.
And in fact, it probably hurts them if something changes that big in your life and in the business, because for most of us, change is literally painful to our brains and our ego. So most people around us are just invested in things staying the same, however they are.
Yes. And to Corey's point, they do MRIs on people faced with new problems or changing habits, and it literally lights up the same part of your brain as pain. So no wonder it'll be different. But here's one thing I would throw out to everybody. And this is something that's far too easily overlooked, and especially for those of you that are business owners. I know, and I've been at conferences, and I've heard business owners argue this, that, well, I can't, I mean, if I only, work 4 days a week, my employees are all going to want to work 4 days a week. Or if I come in and leave at 2 every day, they're all going to want to leave at 2, all of that stuff. I have heard people leading these courses talk about it. I've listened to the entrepreneurs fight about it. I've been one of the entrepreneurs disagreeing with the leader of the thing, saying, no, the business will fall apart. And they said, watch this, just go and tell your employees you're thinking about taking Fridays off. And the ones that work closest with you will tell you, oh, thank goodness, I was wondering when you would do that because you are running too hard. And that happened to me. There's an incredible amount of support around you being able to do the things that you do best, but especially if you're a business owner, and I would argue some of this true for an executive too, it's just harder to navigate with the politics of some larger corporations. Say, I'm going to work 3 days a week, but you can also navigate new things. Like, I had a friend who left a major corporation, started a business, and kept that major corporation paying him about half his total compensation, except he was only giving them 6 hours a week.
That's great.
So you can even navigate those big corporate things, but in review, here's what we want everybody to think about for this new year. Life aims first. Don't do a business plan. Don't do a sales plan for your boss. Don't do a business plan for your organization until you've figured out what you want your life to look like so that it feeds how much money do I even need to have, which this is kind of the last point I make. The lifestyle you want to have, and then what's the business plan that's going to get you there, the career plan that's going to get you there. Because here's the thing, and this is the part we'll talk about money and planning, is what most everybody does. They get a pay raise, and what happens to their overall lifestyle?
Goes up.
Goes up. Because we are a primacy on our business plans and career plans. Isn't that what everybody judges us on?
Yep.
And then we talk to our spouse and it's like, oh, do we have enough money to do this? Can we afford it? And what we're doing is living up with some savings. People still save, but they're like bumping up against the lid, if you will, of their income. And then as soon as the income lifts, they just lift right with it.
Right.
And you'd be amazed what can happen to cultivate contentment and put you in a position where you just save more money, is to have said first what's going to satisfy you. What Corey talked about in the very beginning and how much it's in the current, the advertising, everything else, to push us to be dissatisfied with our lives. And one of the biggest things you can do to combat that is say what will satisfy you in your life. Because then the commercials no longer tell you.
Then you're
what will
playing,
satisfy you.
As we've said in other podcasts before, then you're playing your game, not playing their game out there.
Indeed.
Yep.
Indeed. Anything else you want to leave everybody with today?
I think that is a great closing. Like, bring it back to your aims first, and then all those other things flow from there.
Yep. And for all of you listening who are business owners, this might even be a good episode to give your top employees and say, I want you to take care of your personal aims. It's not my job to make sure they get cared for, but I'm willing to come alongside you. If you have a plan for how to achieve your personal aims inside of our business, I want to help you do that.
Yeah.
And this episode could be a gift to them in being able to do that. You can text it easy from here, where you're listening right now, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and give somebody else the gift of them being able to put the life they want to live first, and not just what society tells us: income, bonuses, trappings, employee count, or square footage is what matters.
Yeah.
So, and with that, we wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. If we don't talk to you before then, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Holidays, whatever, all the other holidays that may come up. If we, I think we're going to release more episodes before then, but I just feel like it's that time of year. Yeah. It's the spirit of the holidays, and we just want you guys to have a wonderful, wonderful year end. And we hope that this episode, like all the others, has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.